This is the important stuff.
Oh yeah, this is what pays the bills, right?
That's right, baby. So hey, Star Wars fans, welcome back. It's Rule of the Galaxy. We're coming in hot tonight. We're going live. We're just going right at it. We're doing like Bill O'Reilly on Fox News. We're going live. We'll do it live anyway. We're here. It's Joe in the pilot seat, and I've got my good pals Alfie and Brent along with me, and it's Rule of the Galaxy, and we're here for another week of podcasting pleasure. And as you heard us talking live when we came on, we're just showing off things we've recently purchased, picked up, whatever. Before we start hitting those, again, always, you can follow us at Rule of the Galaxy SW on Twitter. Email us at rulethegalaxysw@gmail.com. And you can follow us on YouTube. You know, I've been a little lacking on the YouTube. I admit it. We'll get some more things up there soon, especially that toy fair that we're looking to go to at the end of March, where we'll record us being idiots and talking about Star Wars. So I'll just open it up real quick. Alfie, we're going alphabetical order. How you doing tonight? And what's some of that stuff you're showing off there to Brent?
Hey, doing good tonight. Happy to be here. Wednesday night's always a rush, but again, I made it, so I was happy about that. Showing off a few things here. Guy at work has a 3D printer and has been making some stuff for me. Made me this nice few Mando silhouettes. Pretty awesome looking. And also the Sith holocron.
Now, he made that?
Yes.
Okay.
He made it. I sanded it down, glued it all together.
Okay.
And then another guy at work gifted me a pretty remarkable Goodwill find this week. A 60-cent version of Star Wars, The Book of the Sith.
60 cents is
60 cents.
fabulous. Yes.
That's a pretty good find. So
You're
that's
gonna
what I
have to
found
walk
for
us
the
through.
week.
Okay.
So
Our Star Wars. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so what is the Book of the Sith? Because as you guys have gotten me into the dark side and courted me with this book and literature stuff, I find myself being drawn to the dark side and these Sith and trying to find out a lot about them. And they were the Jedi were afraid of that because that was the path to the dark side. The more you wanted to know, the more you wanted to be them.
I have not read this book yet. I'm looking forward to it. I personally like the Sith. I think they're a lot more interesting than the Jedi. So, interesting to see.
And the recent interview we did with Mark Newbold of Fantatrax, he actually said, if you look back throughout Star Wars, the Sith never really lie. They pretty much just tell you, hey, you know what? There's a Sith Lord running the Senate. Hey, I'm your father. Hey,
Right.
This is what's going to happen. They just tell you straight out. And most of the time, the Jedi don't believe them. And if they believe them, maybe things would have gone in different directions.
And, I always bring up the point that, not a lot of people like to hear, but I think that in Revenge of the Sith, the prequels, the Jedi were a lot more manipulative than Palpatine actually was, just for that reason. He told the truth. What he wanted was evil, but he told you about it up front. Whereas as you get to the end of Revenge of the Sith, you find out that, even now with Grogu, there's a lot of secrets the Jedi kept and didn't let everybody in on.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily evil from a certain point of view. He really just wanted order, right? He wanted order and balance and to be in power. I mean, the nasty
was
part
elected
is he wanted
by
to
the Senate.
You are correct.
But Jar Jar gave him emergency powers.
So
He never relinquished them. But he never relinquished them. He originally was voted in to be chancellor, correct? But then he was just given the Jar Jar said we should give him emergency powers.
Was he ever given the chance to give them back at the end of the war? Because as soon as the war ended, the Jedi went right to his office.
They did. They went right at it. They didn't say, hey, you get a week, let's rescind some of those things. Nothing like that. It was give them up now or you're a
He
Sith.
even says when they land back on Coruscant after he's rescued by Anakin and Obi-Wan, the Senate will be unlikely to rescind my powers until General Grievous is defeated.
But don't they try to take him back? Like, if he doesn't give them up now, then he'll never give them up. I swear it was something that a quote from our boy Mace Windu.
They went to
like
confront
that.
him.
Right. And then he started and
but
then like
they aren't the
attacks him.
Senate. They didn't give him those powers. The Senate
Right.
did.
Right.
That's
This
why
is true.
Anakin said when Obi-Wan said, to spy on him, and then Padme said, you need to confront him and try to talk reason. He said, go to the Senate with that.
Where it should be discussed.
Right.
Yep. So real quick, the other lovely dulcet tones there that you're hearing are our good pal Brent Dykman.
Oh.
And while we've gone down this deep dark road and introduced Alfie, Brent jumped in and introduced himself, but Brent also has been working on some things recently, Star Wars related. Brent, you had some great Legion stuff there you were showing me before. You're working on a Maz Kanata's castle, correct?
Yeah, so I have some trash to treasure type stuff. And for anyone that watches or played the Battlefront game on EA, there is a map that you fought on. It's Takadana. It's Maz's castle. So there's you can go into the castle, but my map that I'm going to make for my Star Wars Legion is going to be the courtyard, and then you're going to have a platform on top that you can jump up on top of and shoot from there. But you're going to have the courtyard. There's going to be some hills, and then if you look over the hills, I've got some 3D printed fencing, some stone walls that my Legion guys can go behind, and I can create kind of a ruin area. Alfie, do you know what I'm talking about on the EA Battlefront?
Yeah.
Too.
Yep.
So there's those kind of rolling hills, and then I'm trying to think model train. I couldn't even think of the name of it. So model train scale. So those are tunnels for model trains, 3D printed terrain that I'm going to use to separate the Maz's castle part to the fenced in ruin area. It's not going to have all of that stuff because I know there's another back area and a whole wide open field where you can fight in as well. But yeah, so I'm kind of trying to build up a Maz's castle for my Legion. The other thing is, if you look at the mat, I have a cobblestone mat because my other dream vision of terrain to build is a Canto Bight scene. So the guys that I play with make fun of me because I'm coming up with things from the sequel trilogies, and they're not huge sequel trilogy fans. But part of the reason why I'm doing that is everybody that you watch makes an Endor. They make a Tatooine. They make a Tatooine. They make a Fallujah. They make a. I'm trying to think of all the iconic scenes. So I'm trying to think of what's a scene that's going to take a little bit of crafty skill to make. Naboo and Theed. That's another one that's common.
Mustafar. Yep.
Yeah, Mustafar. Those are the ones that are really cool. Don't get me wrong, but I want to try to do something that hasn't been done before, something that is newer. So that's why I'm pulling out the sequels and trying to pull up a couple scenes. So the idea for the Canto Bight is you're gonna have the casino up on an elevated platform, and then you're gonna have a central statue in the middle of the city, and you're going to have houses that kind of feed towards that central statue. So you're going to have some elevation areas to jump around and play in. And I'm in the course of painting all of that stuff up.
Just watching you guys and seeing all this stuff, it's just it just warms my heart. It really does. The Goodwill finds, the 3D printing, the Star Wars Legions. It just makes me feel like we've done something good with this podcast over the past year.
My pocketbook definitely does not think we've done anything good. I'm just gonna go out there, Joe, and say that I'm sitting next here to all of my other terrain that I've made. There's inside of I made a Kashyyyk map, right? So I made some platforms for Kashyyyk. I've made what was another one that I've made? I made a resistance base, so Dakar, a map with some of that stuff. So and then I made a Sorgan board, which I'm really a fan of the Sorgan one.
The one for the Mandalorian, right?
Yep. The one with the blue Krill planet, and
Yep.
then I made the force pikes to keep the AT-ST out.
Well, I didn't do anything as fabulous and fun over the past week or get in new things, but we did have a listener, and he's I'll get his name and everything put in the show notes and everything, but I just call him as D-Doc. It's DDOC on Twitter, that follows us all the time and comments. And he actually does a lot of woodworking. And he came to me and said, hey, because you record the shows now and sometimes put them on YouTube, I'd really like to make a Rule the Galaxy sign of your logo for you to have behind you when you're recording the show. And I said, well, I can't turn you down. I mean, if you want to do that. And he was like, I get bored. I want to do things. I've got a woodworking shop. Let me do it. So, you know what? I'll put his contact info in the show notes in case anybody else wants something made up like that. But hey, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it that you'd want to do that and take some of your free time to do something for us. And then the other day, I just got tired of all of my loose action figures being in big tubs. So I took Ziploc baggie after Ziploc baggie and took time to put each one of them in Ziploc baggies with their guns. So, and their, whatever equipment, so I could have them put away so that in future years, when grandkids come around, I'll be able to be like, oh yeah, here's all my Han Solos and here's all their guns and here's all their equipment. And so I was really excited about that. It just, I don't know, it just made me feel like I was clean, like I'd done something good and solid in Star Wars. So it's not as exciting as all your stuff, but at least I felt like I did something. So and I'm really looking forward to hearing about that Book of the Sith and seeing what it's all about. So because I know Disney's getting ready to release a new Book of the Sith, and it's I don't know what it's all about, except it's going to talk about all the Sith. So let's see if yours is any different from what they're putting up. So any other news? I've got the Force 4 put together. Any other news that you guys have that you'd want to throw into the mix for tonight? I know we're going to talk a little Star Wars Rebels tonight. We're going to talk about season 2, episodes 1 through 5. Nick was going to be here to talk a little Clone Wars, but he's a little under the weather. Actually, Nick is he and his wife both have the COVID. They both have COVID-19, so they're facing that, not feeling really good right now. So if you're listening and you want to send Nick some good thoughts and prayers, please do so, because he's battling that right now. He said it feels like just a rough flu. So we'll hope that's where it stays and it turns a corner. But no other new news items from you guys before we start the Force 4?
No, but for anybody on the YouTubes that's watching this, I keep notes in my notes on my phone for the Rebels. So if my screen goes black, it's because I gotta hop back out to check out where I am at on my notes. Just want to let you guys know that I'm still around, and if you watch, don't stress out, because back when we had technical difficulties one time, I did that to Joe prior to going on air and recording, but he freaked out for a good 15 minutes about me disappearing and coming back, and all I was doing was checking my show notes. So just letting you and warning you, that's where I go.
We all do our own things our own way, and here at Rule the Galaxy, we go by a wing and a prayer, and we just it ends up working out. So, but
kind of
thank
like
you for
how I
warning
have 3 pages of notes for Rogue One for tonight.
Hey, okay. Well, I'll give you a quick update on that. Rogue One will be next week. We'll be doing that with Mr. Scott Rifen from My Star Wars Story. Scott is one of the most listened to radio broadcasters in Georgia, and he is a huge Star Wars fan. And I've listened to him on so many different shows, and he's agreed to come on. And I told him, I was like, hey, we kind of moved some things around. We were going to do Rogue One, then we moved around, and he goes, that's fine. He goes, let's talk about lots of stuff, and then we'll hit Rogue One in there. I said, sounds great. So next week, it'll be Scott Rifen as a guest. The whole crew will hopefully be here, and we'll hit Rogue One. So Alfie, your notes will still be good for next week. They don't go out of date. So let's start with Force 4. And number 1 on the Force 4 was, for all the book lovers here, especially Brent, Victory's Price, the 3rd in the trilogy by Alexander Freed of the Alphabet Squadron, came out, I believe, today or yesterday or today. So it's the 3rd of the trilogy. This happens after Return of the Jedi, so kind of in that Mandalorian time frame. And I read the first one. I've read the first one so far. I haven't read book 2, and book 3 just came out. So that's a pretty cool. It was a really cool book, the first one that I read. Have either of you checked out any of Alphabet Squadron yet?
I have not.
Yeah, I downloaded the Audible book, and that was one. So, listening to all of the reviews of the High Republic, I'm super interested in the High Republic. But again, I really think I needed to start off with a cartoon or some sort of
Mm-hmm.
animated series to help me out with that. I think that would have been a better way to start than with the books. But what you're saying with all of these technical jargon and all of this introduction into this new world and this era, I felt that way with the Alphabet Squadron one. I
I did
love
too.
I love my legions because I feel like it's the ground battle and it makes sense to me. I'm not really into the ships. I'm not really into. They're cool, but I'm not really into the flying and the squadrons and the ships, and that is not something that really has pulled my attention from the world. Now, Rogue Squadron, the movie that's coming or that's planned to be coming out in the
Sure.
next 2 to 3 years. Again, it's a visual. It's visual, right? It's going to be something from a different medium. I don't know. It just didn't pull me in. The Alphabet Squadron book one. I think I listened to about 5 chapters. I gave it some time, but I just then moved on to I think Revan or something like that. So maybe even Plagueis. I'm not sure which one I went into.
Which is our next book, by the way, for Lothal Library, Plagueis. Anyway, so sorry. A little plug there. Go ahead.
And yeah, I mean, I'm listening to it a second time just because I know it's the next one coming back. So while I don't necessarily put a lot of weight into a story that was created after the movies, and like, man, I know I'm talking bad right now, Alfie. I see that you're giving me the crossed eyes. I get it. I'm talking about your boy Plagueis, and I really wanted it to be more about Plagueis' story. I really did like it's more of a Sidious story. Um, so anyway, digress. Alphabet Squadron, I didn't get into it. For if that's your thing, that's your thing. I just didn't get into the jargon, and it just didn't pull me in.
Gotcha. Alfie, how about you?
I have not read any of them.
Okay.
But I downloaded the Audible stuff, and I can't listen to books. It
Really?
doesn't interest me in the littlest bit. I've tried. I've listened to both the High Republic books, and it didn't do anything for me whatsoever.
Have you listened to like anything else? So you listen to the new High Republics. What about? I'm trying to think of like because Master and Apprentice is another one that was a pretty good one that I was able to get into. I listened to. I'm
trying to think. Dooku Jedi Lost.
I have not listened to Jedi Lost.
Yeah, I just can't do the listening to a book thing. It doesn't. My mind shuts it off, and
to each his own. It works differently for everybody.
What helped was Mass gave me the Jedi mind trick and basically said, "Well, never read it then." So obviously he goaded me in with the reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Second,
I'm just gonna have to read the books themselves. I can't do the Audible thing.
So I did Bane, right? So that was the first one, and I like the different voices that. So I think it's Mark Thompson who's a great narrator. The only problem is when you listen to him be Han Solo and then you switch over and he's also trying to play another part. His voice for Han Solo was the same voice as another character in like Master and Apprentice, and it was like, that's Han Solo. I heard you do that, and I do, and the Thrawn trilogies is Han Solo. I can't flip it back. So,
well, I will go with this. Brent, I did the audio version of the first book. I made it all the way through. I found it interesting, but not like, wow, I really need to read these books. I will probably catch up because I have a feeling there's hidden gems in all three of these leading into future things that Disney Plus is going to be doing since it's set in that time frame. But I tend to agree with you on I have a harder time reading and listening to space battles than envisioning space battles or seeing space battles. If you're going to do an audiobook or an actual book and it has to do with terra firma, people on the ground, conversations, interactions, that's one thing. But, flying this way, doing this loop, the space battle, I have a hard time with that. It doesn't work well for my mind either. So I get where you're coming from. But Hera Syndulla is in, it's not a huge part, but she is in these books, and it takes place after Return of the Jedi. So she's General Syndulla at that time. So it's really cool. But it does lead us into Force number 2 in the Force 4. There's rumors out there that now with supposedly Gina Carano and Cara Dune maybe would have been in Rangers of the New Republic. There's rumors out there that are saying that a live action Hera Syndulla would then, take from Rebels, take from the Alphabet Squadron, and join forces into the Rangers of the New Republic. Going along with that and saying that, myself and Nick Shesky and Mark Newbold were talking the other day that we thought just as well of a fit would be, and a way to introduce this new character would be to add Mara Jade in to where Cara Dune was going to be. So going to Force 4, number 2, Hera Syndulla, possibly in Rangers of the New Republic. Does that interest you? Or does my wild, crazy idea of throwing Mara Jade in there to where we can slowly but surely get to where we find out why Luke's broken? And let's face it, you know it and I know it, that Ben Skywalker killed her, and that's why he broke. Anyway, go ahead. What are your thoughts? Brent.
Never even thought of Hera. Don't know why I didn't think of Hera, but that's a cool character. That's a cool way to go with Rangers. It's in the tri force of power that's gonna try to come together, right? It's in that 3. It was rumored to be one of the 3 the universes that are gonna kind of come together for that epic crossover event, right? More or less, with Mando, Ahsoka, and Rangers.
I believe so.
That would be a cool way, because if Ahsoka is to go try to find Thrawn, which would then lead you to Ezra, then you could bring Hera in, and maybe even Sabine and Zeb at some point, and bring back the crew minus Kanan, but bring him in as a Force ghost, maybe? I don't know. That just bring them into live action. I'm kind of getting some chills thinking about that, because Hera never even crossed my mind, and it's perfect timeline for her to be a part of it. We've talked about, I think Mara Jade would be a good addition as well. I think that they could also just come up with patrols. I mean, it's kind of like what Ponch and John Filoni. Yeah, like it's like an X-wing chips. Like, you could go that round with it too, because there's so much story that you could make it. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed into this person's story or this person's story.
Right.
But I never thought of Hera, but like that's a cool take to try to put Hera into that story. So I think that'd be cool.
How about you, Mr. Alfie?
I think it's a pretty perfect fit. When Cara Dune was axed, I thought Hera would be the natural choice for Rangers of the New Republic. It fits in the timeline. I really feel that rumored Rebels sequel may have just been squashed by the success of the live action stories. So you want to get Hera in there at some point, which then would lead you to Sabine and Zeb, just like Brent said. And that's kind of her role, I think, in this time frame. Hey, out there with the squadron, and it would get us further down the road of finding these Imperial installations, the labs, putting it together. Are we going to, the Exegol route? Are we going to the First Order? Finding all this stuff, seeing the beginnings of it. I think it's a pretty good idea.
Okay, good.
I personally think that Mara Jade should be more of a kind of in the shadows character. I don't think she would be a straight up New Republic character at this point. Maybe somebody they find at some point then brings into the story. But
you could bring her in as the bad, right? Because at this point she's
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You could. Yeah.
You could hint at her. You could bring her in kind of as like the controlling of Moff Gideon, or because didn't she have a couple scenes with Thrawn in the book?
Yes.
Where Thrawn challenged her as to like, what was the outfit that you wore at this right? So like challenged her to talk about the wedding dress or whatever dress she was wearing. Anyway, so you know what I'm talking about, right?
Like, right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was from an Audible book, by the way, Alfie. I know. But anyway,
hey, I read that book like 20 years ago.
Hey, okay. You want to hear something?
I listened to it about 3 months ago.
You guys want to hear something that makes it probably makes me feel more old to talk about this than it does thinking about me being a Star Wars fan since 1977. The Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, this year is its 30th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
30 years since that book came out. Shadows of the Empire, which came out in 1996, the movie without the movie that happened between Empire and Jedi, came out 25 years ago this year. Just absolutely blew me away to think about that, because I think about those like, oh, I was grown up when that came out, you know? Now I was an adult when that came out, and it's 30 and 25 years for those. Man, I'm gonna have to, yeah. I'm getting old. It's
I think I was in 8th grade when Heir to the Empire came out. I mean,
you're a lot younger than me.
Yeah, well, to go back, I got it at the Target Mall. Do you remember the Target Mall?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you not in Indianapolis, there is no longer a Target Mall on the South Side. Just to let you know,
It's been gone for like 20 years.
But let's talk about the Shadow of the Empire, right? This is something that I've heard about as I've like toured the podcast Galaxy.
Oh, my sweet summer child, Brent.
Oh,
I know. I understand that I'm a baby. I understand that I'm a 40-year-old baby, that I haven't I didn't dive in as deep as all of you guys. I just stayed in my visual world for years.
Shadows of the Empire came out. I was in college at the time. It was set between Empire and Jedi. There was a video game, a novel, and then a comic book series.
And a soundtrack. They made their own soundtrack.
Yeah, had a soundtrack and toys.
And action figures and toys, yeah. Ships.
And told the story of what happened. Basically, the rebels, the A-Team trying to track down Boba Fett and Han Solo before he got to Jabba the Hutt.
It was really, really cool. And because Han wasn't there, they came out with a new character called Dash Rendar, who flew the Outrider or the Outlander?
The Outrider.
Outrider. He had his own droid, protocol droid. Right. And Leia met up with a gangster, Prince Xizor, however everybody wants to pronounce it, the Faline, who you'll see in the Clone Wars and things like that. It was really entertaining. Lando was in it. Chewie was in it. Luke was in it. They all went somewhere in disguise. It was a lot of fun. And Prince Xizor and Darth Vader were fighting for the Emperor's favoritism between those two movies. So
it was controlled Black Sun, the cartel.
So
and if you remember, Luke was training to be a Jedi by working at a circus.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just one novel?
One novel.
Shadows of the Empire.
But then there was a comic book series and then a video game that was from the perspective of Dash Rendar.
It was a good video game.
Yeah, it was a really great video game for the time. Came out on Nintendo 64.
Yeah. See, Brent, we got you in the Wayback Machine. So it was fun. You know, it's probably really corny and dorky right now, but back then we thought this was where we were going with it, and we really enjoyed it because it gave us more stories about Star Wars.
Yeah, that Luke in the Coruscant guard outfit, that was
my
awesome.
Favorite. I've got 3 of him. Sorry. 3. Yeah. He's one of my favorite characters. Sorry. It was really cool. So we'll move on because we're going down memory lane. Force Forward number 3. Go ahead.
I have one more point about Hera. I didn't get this out because we went somewhere really far away. One reason why I think Hera will really work in the series, because if they all come together, she would make the perfect Captain America of the Mando's Avengers team.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, she'd be the mom, right? I mean, she would just reassume that role of mom.
The morally good of the group.
I like that a lot. Speaking of Captain America, I'm sorry, but I stopped by a comic book store today as I was picking something up for my daughter. It was everything I could do to not buy like all these omnibus trade paperbacks of all the old Captain America comics. They were expensive, but man, they looked really cool. Anyway, Brent, go ahead.
I was going to say I would say that actually over the course of the movies, Tony Stark became the one that was a little bit more of the more honorable one, and Captain America actually became a little bit more selfish. But anyways, that's a different podcast. It's a different podcast for a different time.
Maybe in the last 15 minutes of the last movie of a 23 movie series. Yes.
Hey, all I know is the only other person that could get Thor's hammer was Captain America.
That's true.
And Vision.
Oh, well, and Vision. Yeah. So number 3.
He's stuck in a circus now too. So just like Luke, he's stuck in a circus.
I never watched Game of Thrones. I'm sure both of you did.
Yeah.
The character or the young lady Indira Varma from Game of Thrones is going to now be a part of the Kenobi series. Now, we don't know what her role is, but some people have brought up that she could play a live action flashback to Duchess Satine. Others have said she's a brand new character that he's interacting with there on Tatooine or other places. I don't. What do you guys know about this character in Game of Thrones? And would she be a good fit?
I think she'll be a good fit. I liked her in Game of Thrones. I do not think she will be Duchess Satine, and I make no speculation on who she will be.
Okay,
but why don't you think Satine though? And I'm only going by the look, right? So she was.
I'm just saying no,
she was
and
Dorne.
I'm stopping there, and I'm not saying anything else.
That's it. Damn it. That's where he's stopping.
That's awesome for a podcast where you got to try to talk and fill some time. But no, so she was the one from Dorne, right?
You're answering your own question here.
Right. And so I was just making sure I was thinking of the right one.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the right story. I think that she would fit into the Satine from what I remember of the animated look of Satine.
No.
Give me some feedback on Dorne. So I'll know, because you're both leaning into that heavily. What? She was from there. Okay. What does that mean?
I was just trying to place if it was the right character from the show that I could to picture to get the image of the picture. I mean, other than Dorne was just kind of like a lavish place, she was also kind of an assassin. Or she had like 2 other girls that were with her that were trying to kill one of the Lannisters.
Had 3 daughters.
Daughters, okay.
Yes.
They wanted to kill the Lannisters, though. She was trying to
the Sand Snakes.
But I'm not sure why he won't go any further into talking about.
I don't either.
Yeah,
he's just leaving it.
So.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, look, but no, she's getting high praise for being on there. People think she's going to do well. I'm interested where she's going to fit in. So I found that we've done a lot of that, right? Taking Game of Thrones characters and mix them into Star Wars across.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, a lot of the sequel trilogy was basically it was a lot of crossover from Game of Thrones people. I mean, you got the Bree of Tarth,
Gwendolyn Christie.
Yep, I couldn't think of her name, but she was
Phasma. Kira from Solo.
Yep, okay. Kira from Solo.
I think Hux too, as your son calls him, bitch boy Hux. I believe Hux was. I know he was also Harry Potter, but I believe he was in Game of Thrones and like a bit part.
Pedro Pascal was in Game of Thrones, that's correct.
And Pedro Pascal was Homegirl's brother,
right?
That was what I was making. I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to speak it because I didn't want to be wrong. But in Game of Thrones, Pedro Pascal played this girl's brother,
Indira Varma. Okay.
Yes. Whatever her name was from Dorne, whatever the Dornish princess that she was, her brother got his skull smashed by a power lifter. And when I say his skull smashed, literally the guy puts his hands together and smashes Pedro Pascal's skull.
Okay.
Am I
glad I missed that episode?
Right, Alfie?
What?
That the mountain just basically straight up smashes Pedro Pascal's skull
with his thumbs.
Oh yeah, he puts him in. Okay, yeah, just pops him, just pops his head.
Before we get into Rebels, I gotta hit Force 4 number 4. The last thing I saw before we hopped on they're saying in the Andor series that now Obi-Wan Kenobi will be making appearances in the Andor series throughout the series. So I don't know what the heck's going on there. I don't know if that means Bail Organa's supposed to be in this, Mon Mothma. They both know that Obi-Wan is around. I don't know if they're going to be going to Tatooine to visit him. I don't know if they're going to draw him away and say, run this quick mission for us. I don't know if he's going to have any interaction with Cassian Andor. But I mean, it's wide open, right? I mean, that's pretty cool that he's going to be in there, and it's not just going to be the 4 or 6 series that Kenobi's having, but he's also going to be in this Andor series. And any thoughts from you guys on that? Alfie, go ahead.
In rewatching Rogue One in anticipation of tonight's episode, I did make note that conversation between Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, it kind of gives you the idea that he has had contact with Obi-Wan, that he knows where he's at, maybe has kept him, in the loop a little bit as far as what's going on. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some Obi-Wan in, a kind of side story. Will he meet the main characters? I think that may be a little bit of a stretch, but could we see him involved with some Rebel stuff? Possibly.
I mean, they could do a HoloNet and basically get his advice on what to do and what to do next. They could call him up, but they better be calling him Ben. They better not be calling him Obi-Wan, because he hasn't heard that name in a long time.
No, because he died on Mustafar.
Yeah. That's, going to that point real quick, Brent, before we start into the Rebels, I do find it weird that they're calling the series Obi-Wan Kenobi instead of just Kenobi, or instead of Old Ben, they're calling it Obi-Wan Kenobi, when we all, like you said, we've known that basically from the end of Revenge of the Sith until New Hope, he's not called Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I don't know. I think it's a good point to be brought up, and I don't know where Disney's head was on that one, but I'm sure they'll surprise us at the end and let us know why they made that choice. So
yeah, but at the same time, he does go by Obi-Wan Kenobi because Leia knows him as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Leia says, "Oh, help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, your only hope." So she only knows him as Obi-Wan.
Yeah, because he served her father well in the Clone Wars.
Her father gave her that name, so that little bit of recognition just in saying that, she immediately has a connection to him. He knows this is serious.
There we go. See, I don't know.
And he has to know right away that's the twin sister too, right? That's just another real little wrinkle that I just thought about. Like when he sees Leia and he says, "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi," he's got to know that that's Luke's sister right there, right?
Wouldn't he recognize R2-D2 and C-3PO?
He said, "I don't ever remember owning a droid."
Right.
He doesn't say that he didn't recognize him. He said, "I don't ever remember owning a droid."
Last droid I remember him having was R4, and he got his head ripped off in Revenge of the Sith. I don't know.
I'm just saying, continuity-wise, he would immediately recognize, hey, this is my boy Anakin's droid in the protocol droid that he built.
Maybe he's trying to play it cool because he doesn't know what Luke knows.
Of course he's trying to play it cool.
He was the cool detective in Attack of the Clones. He's cool, man.
His plan all along was to manipulate Luke.
I want to go home and rethink my life.
That's exactly right. I'm going to have a drink. So we've delayed it as long as we can. We've got to start talking about Rebels Season 2, episodes 1 through 5. And Alfie, I know you're off kilter on the notes and everything because you studied a different series of shows, but that's okay.
I was wrong twice today.
Don't ever let that happen again. So
I really hope it doesn't affect the quality of this show.
I don't think so. You were on automatic all the crap that I put you guys through, and you're worried about the quality that you produce on this show. My gosh, I am the king of non-quality. But Rebel Season 2, we just ended Season 1. great ending. We find out there's more. We find out Ahsoka, and we go from being these little rebel groups to it's starting to come together. The first one's called the Siege of Lothal, and let's just face it, it starts out great with the Ghost and Phoenix Squadron and Commander Sato in that familiar blockade runner ship. I mean, right there, you see a totally different view than we did in season 1, right? So these first 5 episodes, and we broke them down 1 through 5. So we're going to do 1 through 5, 6 through 11, 12 through whatever, and in the last 5 altogether. But these were great. I really enjoyed these. There were no misses in these first 5 episodes here at all. These were all humdingers, and you like that terminology? That's professional terminology right there. Brent, you have been studying Rebels a lot more than me. I've watched them, but I feel like you've got a really good grasp on them. Starting off this new season, what did you see? What did you think of kicking in with Siege of Lothal?
So my number one note that I wrote down is Vader. Right? So Vader shows up. Vader is there. Vader starts to run things. Callus tries to keep us cool. The magistrate starts to like get nervous. But like the number one thing was it was really cool to see Vader in this, not knowing that, knowing it was going to happen from the beginning because they were talking about the Inquisitors and you saw him, but seeing him come out and come off the shuttle and come through was really awesome. So that's one of the biggest things that I like take away from at least episode 1 was the introduction of Vader.
Yep, I agree. And you see that Grand Moff Tarkin came down and laid down the law before the end at Mustafar, where everything went to hell in a handbasket for them.
Right.
But he said, Vader, basically, look, you're in charge now. Get these rebels. Don't care how you do it, what you're going to do. I love that he tells Minister Tua she's got to go visit Grand Moff Tarkin on Coruscant. So she's got to leave. But that's all part of his plan to trap the rebels. I thought it was really cool that from the very, very beginning, she's just a politician. She's just a city worker, right? Running the city and things like that. And she wants to abandon ship and jump and defect right over to the rebels right away. I thought that was great. You start seeing that in the Imperials, that they're ready to leave that and is scared for their lives and come over to the rebellions. And she has names of rebels that they don't know. And then she has the true reason that the Empire has come to Lothal. And she's going to tell them all that in return for defecting to them and getting off Lothal. So I thought that was great.
Wouldn't you defect though too? So Alfie, I know like to bring you in and to bring you back up, like wouldn't you, if you were the one that was just kind of like this lowly governor and you know that the rebels you haven't been able to get control of them and they bring in this Vader and you just feel that it's bad. And I think she even witnessed a couple guys' head getting chopped off at the end of season 1.
She did.
Wouldn't you defect as quick as possible?
You would think you would. I mean, it makes sense that that's immediately the route she chooses.
I mean, I wouldn't want to stick around. I wouldn't want to try to take my chances with this dude. I'd want to turn tail and get the hell out also.
But
so
that's one of the things I really like about, this opening to season 2 is that boom, with the inclusion of Vader, you see how much bigger the story gets. And this isn't just, some
on both sides
little cruisers around Lothal, and stealing stuff. Now all of a sudden there's a rebellion and real tyranny.
I think go ahead.
I was just gonna you get to see a little bit more of how that empire works, right? So like at the end, Tarkin basically blowing up the communications tower and blaming it on the rebels. And you just see how they go around and the misinformation, but they are the only information, and how they get and hold the power of a lot of those systems.
Well, I think a couple things stood out to me. One of those was the point you just made. We saw that with the tower, how Thrawn threw it back on the rebels. But a couple things that stood out huge in this first episode. Kanan does not want to be a part of the rebellion. He's like, I want us off by ourselves, basically the Robin Hood of the Outer Rim, and I don't want to have orders and secrecy and all that kind of stuff. But then every time Vader's around, Ezra can feel cold. I thought that was awesome that he could sense that already. And the last thing was, let's just face it, when they go to get Minister Tua out and Callus takes her to her ship, Vader is watching from afar. He's watching all this. And as soon as she walks into the ship, they blow it up and kill her, and then take all the photos and videos of the rebels around and splash it all over the media saying, these rebels killed Minister Tua, track them down, help us find them, all that kind of stuff. So seeing what Kanan was like, and then seeing, like you said, how the Empire works, it's going to flip when it controls the media, the military and everything. They're going to flip it back on anybody who's going against their power. Go ahead, Brent.
So why do you think Kanan was so set against being part of the war machine, I guess is the best way to say it? Where do you think the
No, you're good.
motivation was to stay away?
I think it comes from, and this is the point I was getting ready to make, why I like Kanan so much. He's not a great Jedi, and he's not even a Jedi Knight. And being included in becoming a part of the rebellion, he's going to have to face what he really doesn't want to, and that is the loss of his master, the loss of his order. He's going to be expected, just like when we see a Jedi in any series, we expect them to be Luke Skywalker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rebels are immediately going to see him as, kind of their saving grace. Oh, we have a Jedi on our team. We can do so much more, or, we can do more of the unexpected, the impossible. And he doesn't want that.
So you think he's afraid of letting them down?
No, he's afraid of him. Yes, letting them down, but also afraid of himself, because he's not really a Jedi. If they're off just pulling little smuggling runs here and there, he can teach Ezra the little stuff he knows, and Ezra's never going to know that there's any more out there.
And I would say this, starting from number 1 right here, we've always said that Kanan was a reluctant Jedi, right? Starting from number 1, where he doesn't want to be a part of a rebellion with rules and military and everything else, feeds all the way to episodes 4 and 5, which we'll talk about. He was part of the Clone Wars. He saw what being a part of that military structure did, and he doesn't care which side it's on, whether it's the rebels or the Imperials. He doesn't want to be caught up in something like that and have everybody turn on him or expect a lot out of him again. So I would agree with you completely on that. So this episode was great.
The other part of me too thinks, because he was part of the Clone Wars, does he have some of that PTSD of not wanting to be back in a war, right? So not just the fact that he's a reluctant Jedi, because I do agree with where you're at, but there's a part of me that he kind of sees where this is going, and he doesn't want to be a part of that.
Not only that he doesn't want to be a part of it, but you also have to remember that he is only alive because he ran away.
Right.
He didn't stand with his master, and get the, honorable samurai Jedi death. He ran away and saved himself. So Kanan is, he's carrying some of those war demons with him in his character.
Yeah. I thought some interesting comments in there. At one point in time, sarcastically, Kanan looks to Hera and says, "Okay, General Hera," throwing her under the bus a little bit, but that's who she really becomes. And that's why we said earlier, she'd be a perfect fit for Rangers of the New Republic, because whether it's Rogue One or whether it's in the Alphabet Squadron or possibly in the Ranger show, she has become General Hera, and she is that upstanding, it's always the right way of doing things kind of person. I also like later on, somebody asks when Kanan comes up with the plan, "Are you crazy?" And he looks right at him and says, "Does anyone ever say yes to that question?" I thought that was fabulous. And let's face it, we're buzzing through this episode, but it's a very fast-paced episode. I love the ending where they leave it to where Ezra feels the cold again. Darth Vader looks absolutely fabulous. I mean, the drawings of him in Rebels and in season 7 of Clone Wars, man, I want characters of those. Those look so good. But you see Darth Vader and he looks awesome, and we go to be continued. What a great way to start a season, with a minister getting killed, Vader showing up, the rebellion starting to come together, Kanan being scared of it all, and Darth Vader going to face down the good guys. I just think it's a great opening episode. Go ahead, Brent.
So one thing that I have in my notes was the fact that they tried the Jedi mind trick, that Ezra tried to do it but didn't necessarily have the ability to do that, and then Kanan had to pull it off. I also think that when they were sitting there talking about it, Kanan was scared out of his mind, and I think even in animation, it was a great way. Like they animated that amazingly. That he did not want to, and he wants to turn tail and run again now. Like prior to being part of the War Machine, that was at the beginning of the episode. Now this just solidifies it. Like, dude, I don't want to mess with that dude. We were lucky to be out of there with our lives.
Yeah.
Agreed. So,
Agreed.
but I also wrote it. My last note for this episode was perfect way to stop it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about cliffhanger. To think that Darth Vader shows up against the good guys, that's how you're going to leave it. And these are the guys who are supposed to carry the show for 4 seasons or 5, whatever seasons. And they're going up against Darth Vader in the first episode of season 2. I mean, that's a great way to end it. To start it again, Siege of Lothal #2, the second show of the series of the season, Darth Vader and Kanan and Ezra do fight. It's a battle, and Darth Vader, I wrote down huge, powerful, almost kills Ezra. The rest of the crew are battling troopers, and then while the battle is going on, I mean, he could have killed Kanan. Could have killed Ezra. He was toying with them, I felt like. And then our good friend Sabine, who we're starting to see some changes and growing up in Sabine, drops with bombs, the ATSTs, on Darth Vader, and he survives. Man, talk about an opening to the second act. Either one of you guys have comments to start on that?
Just to reiterate, it didn't look like Vader was even working hard, I think was the notes that I had. It doesn't even look like Vader is working hard. And I also like that they thought, okay, we can get away, he'll be fine. And then all of a sudden you see him throw the ATSDs off of him, or whatever, the walkers that fell on him, off. And then Sabine tries to shoot at him and gets caught with a couple blaster bolts back to the face. So yeah, like all of that, nice fight, great fight. I loved everything about that entire interaction at the very beginning.
You hit a key line on it, and Alfie, I'm sorry I cut in, but when Ezra thought they were gonna be okay, we survived, and then he says, "If that doesn't kill him, what will?" And Kanan just looks at him and says, "Not us." Thought that was great. Alfie, any thoughts on?
Yeah, just that shot of him, using the Force and lifting the ATSTs. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. That was just perfect Vader.
It doesn't. And here we are talking about an animated series, how we can make Vader even cooler than what everybody thought he was in the original trilogy and in Rogue One and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it was really a throwback to the duel with Luke in Empire. Just fighting with one hand, just like, I can beat you at any point in time, but I'm not interested in that. He wasn't interested in killing Ezra or Kanan because, like we've said, the story just got bigger. He wants the whole rebellion, not just those two.
Yep. No, he'd rather have those two captured than kill off 2 Jedi. He'd rather know what's going on there. I think what was cool is they pretty much put everybody on lockdown. Brent, you brought this up at the end of last season. Darth Vader has them burn down Tarkin Town. And so all those people have to escape and flee. That was a very powerful moment to see. It was almost like Luke Skywalker coming back to the homestead moment, seeing the black smoke for Ezra. And it really made him change from thinking, this isn't a fun and games kind of, we steal some things and do whatever. People are getting killed. People are getting their houses burnt down. And where do they go from this serious moment to? They know they can go back to Lando Calrissian and he'll help them get off the planet. And Billy D does his typical cool little self in the hologram. But, what do you guys think about the next steps we're taking there of Tarkin Town being burnt down? They're trapped. They have to find a way off, and they use Lando to get out of the planet.
Well, one, I think the whole Tarkin Town really showed Ezra the consequences of his actions. He is really not wholly responsible, but the Ghost crew, they're causing innocent people to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
They are doing good, but for the good they're doing, the Empire is just going to inflict more suffering on the people of the fall.
And that's where I go with it. Is I think that this also illustrates the length that the Empire is willing to go to on their own people to try to make sure that they get their point across. They're not going to back down. They're not going to give up. They're not going to like. They're ruthless, and they're going to make sure that they get their way. And they're going to do it by any means necessary. If that means that we have to burn a village, we're going to burn the village. And he also knew that. I think he also knew that it would pull on the heartstrings because they knew that there were refugees in that Tarkin town as well.
Oh yeah, agreed. I think some things that stood out to me. This was a very key moment. Again, I say going Luke back to the homestead at Lars' homestead. Kanan says to Ezra, "There's a cost for any action we make now." And then he said, "This is like when I was young, but back then there were 10,000 Jedi. Now there's just us." He said, "I'm not afraid," or Ezra says, "I'm not afraid." And Kanan says, "That's actually what I'm afraid of." And so, I mean, you and I talked about the first season, the growth, right? And now we're seeing that growth, not only in the depth of the story and the abundance of the Empire and the abundance of the rebellion, but that Kanan and Ezra growth story is going on right before our eyes in this episode, the last two episodes right here.
Well, and, Kanan's on his own here with Ezra. He doesn't have a council. He doesn't have other masters to lean on for guidance. If he messes up with Ezra and he sees, Ezra's reactions to these events, he can easily go to the dark side. And again, that will be 100% on Kanan because he's the only one. That's an awful lot to ask of someone that never passed the trials, never had
Correct.
a bad one before.
Agreed. So let's just face it, they use Lando's trick. They get off planet. They're sending off beacons so the Empire will chase them in different ways. They get off of Lothal. Vader gets caught up in a tractor beam by the Star Destroyers, which was set up for Hera and the Ghost crew. But they get out of that. But Vader's put a tracking device on the Ghost. And when he does that, he tracks him down. And I thought this was a fabulous scene because it was just like The Last Jedi, where Kylo Ren was blasting through everybody around the New Resistance ship, right? Vader was picking off A-Wing fighters in the Phoenix Squadron like it was nothing. And Sato was like, "What's going on? How do we get around this?" And Hera has to get the Ghost back out involved and get the Ghost crew back involved. They all wanted to take off and they couldn't because Vader was messing everything up for them. And I loved, again, another fun little line where Hera tells him, "Kids make mom and dad proud," when she's telling them, when they're on the guns and everything else. I mean, just great where you add in that little banter, but all this serious stuff's going on. But I thought it was a great scene. It was a great scene of Vader. It was a great scene of what was going on with the rebellion. Any thoughts from you guys on that area right there?
Just a little quirk when they catch Vader's ship. The commander of the Star Destroyer looks scared shitless because he knows what's going to happen. However, he talks to the technician and he basically says, "But Vader's not," he said, like, "easy mistake" or something like that. And then the ship commander said to the technician, "Well, Vader's not going to know that," basically saying, "I'm going to throw your ass under the bus because I don't want to take it because I know I'm going to die. I'm going to throw your ass under the bus." And then that dude does like this hard swallow when he hears the commander say that, like, "Ah, shit, here it comes." Like,
agreed.
He knows he's dead.
Right? Somebody's dying, and the Star Destroyer captain wasn't going to go down with the ship.
So what did you guys think? Because while that battle's going on and while the Ghost is going on, Ahsoka says, "Can I tag along to help?" Right? She wants to go along with them. And Ahsoka and Kanan start working together to see who the pilot is of that ship. They start using their force powers to feel in the force who's piloting that ship, because he said it's the Sith Lord, and she's like, "Well, let's find out who." I thought that was great Star Wars right there. And then to have that moment where she finally feels who it is, and it basically knocks her out, And then Darth Vader's quote, "The apprentice lives." I mean, just for the people who loved Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, to see this transpire and flip to all the way to this, and to see that now I'm not sure she knew it was Vader, but she had a feeling. And Vader knew just like that. As soon as he reached out to her mind who it was. Did you guys just like get chills seeing that happen? That was awesome in my opinion.
Oh yeah. And you instantly know this is going to open up a whole new storyline that we can't wait to get to.
Agreed.
And I just was wondering, does she actually feel that it's him, right? Because Ezra always feels cold and anger, right? It's always like cold and anger. I always feel cold and anger. But does she know that is Anakin? Like
Maybe not at first, but yeah, the feeling grows throughout the season. That
sure, but that first feeling, like just like what Joe said, he gets on, goes and talks to the Emperor and tells the Emperor that I know the apprentice lives, right? But I don't know if she knows that this isn't good. But as this season goes on, I'm not convinced that she knows that that's who that is.
I'm not sure she's 100% sold until the end of this season, right?
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
I think here's what I'll say. I think she feels that it might be.
I don't think she wants it to be.
Exactly.
I think she's
not want
right.
That.
She's afraid that it would be. So she's trying to tell herself or talk herself out of it being him.
Correct. And to see that the Emperor, well, when she was talking to Kanan, he said it felt like the Clone Wars when he could feel the Sith and the cold and everything like that and the anger. But seeing that the Emperor and him were talking, and then he said it could lead to other Jedi, maybe Kenobi. Just again, Alfie, like you said, opening up an entire can of worms that we're thinking, okay, we're going to this kid show that now is really already in season 2 saying, now we're going to jump it up a little bit. We're going to take it up another level. So I thought the first 2, because it was a 2-part of that opening series, were just great Star Wars in general. I thought everything in there was pretty much 99% or higher. Like they were on the Star Wars meter doing this show right here. So, and then we hop right from that. We're like, okay, where's this all going to go? And the next episode, the Lost Commanders, number 3 in the series, or I'm sorry, I keep saying series, in the season. We get to go and find some familiar old friends. Ahsoka's got a plan, but I thought it was really, really just awesome the way they laid this out. What, Alfie, I know you didn't probably watch this one before this, but you remember a lot of it. What were some of your thoughts of the Lost Commander when they were going to take off and go look for her old friend that's going to help them with this and be more allies and maybe help them find a base?
Well, you knew it was coming from the trailer. And I can't remember what celebration that was when they showed the trailer, and he said, they called me Rex, so at some point it was coming. And I love the back and forth between Kanan and Rex. He immediately distrusts them, trying to explain to Ezra what the clones did during the Clone Wars, how they turned on the Jedi. Just some really awesome world building right there.
And I love that she had the head of an old tactical droid from the Clone Wars
to
use to find.
I didn't watch a sizzle reel or anything from Celebration. I just watched.
It was visual.
I got. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because again, and this was something that I found because we were supposed to do Rogue One tonight. The fact that the ghost was in Rogue One too was something that I saw somebody put out in the social sphere, and I shared it. And I didn't know about this show until I got Disney Plus. It was mostly movies at that time, so I like the fact that it was a tactical head droid. And then when I heard 7567, I was like, I know that number is somebody important. I know I've heard that number from I know that number is somebody. And then when they finally get there and he pulls up and he walks out, I'm like, okay, that's where 7567. That's the number. But I just knew that number was important for some reason.
So a couple of things that I thought were important out of this one. One, Ahsoka told Kanan if you find my old friend, you must trust him. So I thought that was great that she was laying that groundwork, and it was very difficult for Kanan to understand and want to accept it. Again, like Brent said, I love the 7567. You're right. As soon as you hear that, everybody's ears perk up like, whoa, wait a minute, 7567. So seeing Rex come out and do that, let's face it, Gregor, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I love him for it. Wolf, mistrusting, he's not liking any of it. He just wants to be left alone and go get the Jupa or whatever. So I thought they did a really good job of building up the animosity between Kanan and Rex. I think that's what this whole thing was about. Build up the animosity between Kanan and Rex. And then basically I felt like we had that setup, and then we went into Jaws. Like we were watching Jaws for a little while. The music, the way they were on the boat, using the bait, and I felt like I watched a little bit of Jaws there for a little bit. Did you guys feel that, or was it just me where like I don't know, it just felt like they wrapped in some of that into it to like be an homage to like, hey, this is what it kind of sounded like and looked like to me. So but the Kanan and Rex thing were the big part right there.
I love the animosity. I agree with the animosity, but I also agree that when the tension gets high, they work together. And I think that the hunting the Jupa was a fun, interesting, creative way to try to bring that out. That even though there is that animosity, these two will actually work well together. And it shows longer as you go deeper into the series. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a way to say that, yeah, you have differences, but when push comes to shove, you can trust each other because you understand each other, type of a thing. That's the way I took it. I also got it. I think it was a comic relief because you just had 2 heavy episodes. You got to have a little comic relief where you have Zeb being used as bait, which was, I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny. I thought it was funny.
I did too. Thought it was great. I thought it was good to have a little humor in there.
Yeah, it was funny. I liked that, that animosity between Kanan and Rex. It's kind of showing that there's scars on both sides from the Clone Wars. And I really liked that, like you said, Ahsoka telling them you got to trust this person. So it's almost as if Filoni had a story there that he was going to tell in the future of how Rex got there, how he didn't, or what happened to him during Order 66, and that there was a connection with Ahsoka.
Agreed. I thought I really liked. Well, first of all, again, we see that the Wolf has some mistrust of the rebels and the Jedi, and we didn't know this at the time, but he had turned in he hadn't been giving Rex the messages from Ahsoka. I'm not sure if it came up at the end of this one or the beginning of the next one, and then 2, he's the one that pinged for the probe droid to come towards their planet and check out what was going on. But I loved the little time when Kanan and Hera were talking on the hologram, because he was saying, I don't trust this. I don't want this. And she said, the Jedi and the clones save billions of lives, even my own. And I thought that was fabulous. And another great line by Rex. It was a great Jedi that I followed. Was the best leader. He led by example. And you knew who he was talking about. So he's doing that touchy points. We just saw that guy flying a TIE fighter at the end of the last show. And here he is talking about how he was this great leader who led by example. So you're bringing a lot of pieces together in these episodes.
I agree. I do like the Rex comment that the best leader leads by example too. And I think it was a way to try to teach. It's a lesson to be taught, right? So it's he was a Jedi, but Jedis lead by example. They're not always talking and they're not always telling. Sometimes they just are out there doing. So I liked that message that I think Rex was trying to send.
Yeah. So the probe droid shows up. Obviously, it does give away that the Ghost crew is there, and the big Jupa's hanging on the side of the tank, which was hilarious. The things we could eat now in Star Wars. We got Jupa, we've got crate meat. We're getting a little bit of everything.
That's gotta spoil the amount of meat that was on that thing. That's gotta spoil.
Not if you prepare it right. You got to smoke it.
Okay.
Maybe they make jerky out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Rub it in some salt. Get you a little smokehouse.
There you go. Salt. I heard salt cures everything too, so we're good there. I like that we have two to be continued shows at the beginning of the season. So 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together. The Relics of the Old Republic. Number 4 is the to be continued. We know the Empire's on its way. The Ghost crew wants to get out of there, but of course now the probe droid has damaged the Phantom. So here we go right into it. Rex says here's a list of bases from the Old Republic: separatists, smugglers, bounty hunters, and even some old Mandalorian bases and camps. So Alfie, do you remember Wolf? Was Wolf the one in the Clone Wars who lost his memory for a while and the droids found? Was he the one who has the cybernetic eye? Wolf? I can't remember. I know it if I saw it, but I'm just going off.
I can't remember either off the top of my head.
Okay. All right.
My fault for not being prepared.
No, my fault. Brent, you lead us off on Relics of the Old Republic right here.
I mean, so if you're gonna have me lead off, I'm gonna make the statement. In my notes, I wrote there are 9 biomes in the world that we know of today, but yet in the Star Wars universe, every planet is a damn desert planet. It's not every planet, but I mean, sweet Jesus, a lot of where we're at is desert. Everything is desert. Sand, it gets everywhere. I mean, I know there's other planets, and yes, I know that they do the aquatic with the Quarren, and there's in the Clone Wars, and you have Fallujah. I just feel like there is a high level of desert planets.
It's easier to animate.
That's exact. I was going to say easier to film on, easier to animate, less scenery. But you're right. But that's probably the reason why.
I'm sure it is, but it's just like that was like, I mean, I watched the whole first one, but then it was when I watched season 4, that was my first comment.
Well, you know what? I'm going to throw it. Maybe all these desert planets just use a lot of fossil fuels, and that's why they ended up that way. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't care which side you're on. I'm just throwing it out there.
So I wasn't. I'm not sure if it's this one or the next one, and then I think it does go into 5 as well. When the probe droid sends a signal back that this is the place or whatever, Callus is like, "We need to go right away."
That's this. That's this one. Yep.
Yeah. So he's like, "We got the signal," and then they try to say, "Are you sure that that's the right place to go?" And he's like, "Yes, we need to go like right away." And then it hits me. I think it's the next one. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. In the next one, somebody's like, "We need to go there," and Callus is like, "Are you sure we need to go there?" It's just like the reversal. It's a role reversal, and they do that often too. They do that quick. That's where they're at. Because it reminds me of Empire Strikes Back when the probe droid on Hoth, and he's like, "They're there. The rebels are at that base because of the the power
shield generators,
the shield generator." So he's Vader's like, "They're there. We need to go there." And that's the same kind of thing with Callus. Callus sees the picture and he's like, "Yep, that's where we got to go."
Well, you know what? I didn't even pay attention to that line, but I like that you did, because I mean, I need to go back and rewatch that now. But I liked when Rex hopped on with Callus, and Callus was like, "We're sending people there," and he's like, "Well, if there's going to be a fight, I hope you bring better than those stormtroopers." So here's a clone trooper talking down about the stormtroopers, like, they're nothing. Yeah, we'll take them out in a heartbeat. I really like that they were using guns from the Clone Wars. They had the battle rifles and the pistols that they had back in the Clone Wars, and they finally got Kanan to act a little bit more like, "Hey, I'm going to jump in and help, and so we can get this done." I like that they started working together. Ezra said, "We'd be a good team if we work together." Think about that. A Jedi is telling the clones and another Jedi, if we work together, we're a good team. And that's what the whole Clone Wars was the Jedi and the clones working together. So I thought that was really cool. But anyway, I'll let you guys ramble and talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, but the whole reason why Kanan doesn't want to do it is because of what happened at the end of the Clone Wars.
Exactly.
That's the whole reason why he's resisting getting them to work together, is because he still doesn't trust them because of what happened to his master at the end of the Clone Wars. He watched somebody that looks just like Rex turn around and shoot his master.
Yes, and I liked how the clones, the first time they saw the Imperial walkers coming, they were kind of blown away by them. But you think about it, they never had seen them during the Clone Wars. These were new models that they hadn't seen before, and they were going to go into the storm, and I think it was Kanan said, the Jedi won't be blind in the storm, and Rex just turns to him and says, "Sir, yes, sir." Kind of like he used to Anakin. Just those little lines like that really get me going. Kanan, you don't always have to see something to know what it is. And if you trust in me, I can get us that shot. And Rex, I always trust my general. And Kanan doesn't want to be a general. He doesn't want. We've already discussed it. But here's Rex still having that loyalty to the Jedi, even though after everything that's happened and what's going on. So I really like the back and forth of the Jedi and the clones going back and forth on this. Any thoughts from you guys as they go into this battle with Kallus and his crew?
Yeah, I think you're right on there with Rex and Kanan. That's Rex still has that desire to be led by the Jedi. That's his programming. What makes him feel, complete fighting alongside a Jedi general. And, and it brings back all those memories from the Clone Wars show. Gives you a sense of where this could go if they were to work together.
Yep. Another line by Rex when he's talking to Ezra. "We're soldiers, Ezra. This is what we were born to do." Just old touch points that make you feel like, man, this is basically a sequel to the Clone Wars now that they bring Rex and these guys back into it. So, Brent, any thoughts as we get closer towards the battle at the end of this, with Ezra and Kanan, and Rex working together?
I just like the fact that Ezra learns to relax and focus. Doesn't trust himself, doesn't think that he'll be able to do anything, and then learns the ability to focus through the Force and allows him to zero in. And I can't remember, and this is if he's the one shooting or if he's the one navigating, because there's one that's navigating and there's one that's shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember which one was which, but just basically Ezra had no confidence in himself, and over time and over he was able to develop that confidence.
Yeah, I think it was Kanan was leading them through the blind. Ezra was finding the shot. So, but and I love that Rex threw him his helmet to wear out there to protect him from the sandstorm. So some other really cool things that I liked. Rex, when the battle's going on, he looks around and yells, "It's just like the old days, right?" And somebody said, "We're going to live to fight another day." And he says, "We do when we have a Jedi leading us." Just so much fun. I mean, it was really cool. It's what made me buy the fat old Rex from Rebels, because I loved that character. I didn't even know it existed, but now I've got it, and it's so awesome. So we end with a new Inquisitor being sent in Darth Vader's shuttle. Do you guys remember which Inquisitor was it like the seventh brother or something like that?
Yeah, it was the big Hulkin guy. It was the big Hulkin.
Huge.
Yeah.
Big
Kind of
scary
looks like it kind of looks like a shark.
Okay. Yeah. So it was I think we ended season 1. We thought we were rid of the Inquisitors, and here we've got the big scary dude showing up, who's should be bigger and better than what the first one was. And then we bring the Ghost crew back together, and we have Rex meet up with Ahsoka, and he just looks at her and says, "You got old." I love that. He said, "I'm glad you're still alive." And Ahsoka says, "Thank you for trusting my friend." Kanan says, "It wasn't easy." And Ahsoka says, "Nothing worth doing ever is." I mean, that's some great lines for an animated series. I mean, that just was fabulous. So any closing thoughts on that one before we finish up real quick?
Yeah,
with
that line goes back to the beginning of all the Clone Wars episodes. I mean, if you go back and, well, no, I'm not saying literally, I'm just saying if you think back to every episode starting with a little saying like that.
Yes, when Tom Kane was doing his
Yes.
read through at the beginning. Yeah, I can. You know what? I can almost imagine. I bet you if we look it up, there is one that says nothing worth doing ever is easy or something like that. I think it's got to be in there. Alfie, you did watch number 5, correct?
Yes.
See, I knew we'd get you caught up. It's the process, baby. Season 2, episode 5. Always 2 there are. So, Alfie, you saw this one. Brent, you saw this one. I talked too much. One of you guys lead the way. This is a good episode about the Inquisitors and supplies and everything else.
So I have in my notes, and I'm not sure exactly where it's at because it's been a smidge since I watched it, but I have in there levitate, right? So that I think it's Ezra's trying to do some levitation, but he's not able to do it. So the more I watch this, the more I fall in line with this idea that a Jedi and or a force sensitive person has to be put into something of high stress to be able to tap into the force, to be able to utilize that new skill. So if it's a new skill or something that they're trying to learn, they can't do it unless they're put into this high stress situation. And I go back to season one with and trying to connect with the cats and try to connect with the animals. He couldn't connect with the animal until he was in that high stress situation with the Inquisitor coming down on top of him. Trying to lift up the door and all of the stuff that, and going back to any of the other Force users in any other videos or any other shows, and just rewatching or re-listening to the Darth Plagueis book about Force lightning that Plagueis was talking about, only Sith can make it like hot and intense and disfigurable. Anyone can reproduce it, but you have to be in an intense state to be able to do that. So my whole thing is, and I'm going into a diatribe, but the more I watch this, the more I believe that in order to learn a new skill, you can teach a kid until they're blue in the face, but you can lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink. You can teach it, but in order for them to experience it, they have to experience it in a high stress situation. Then you can teach them how to get back to that same level. So once they've experienced it, so if you want to talk about like Rey and the Force lightning in Rise of Skywalker, Kylo says, I needed you to know what it felt like. And so then he can keep trying to get her to tap back into that so she can do the Force lightning again in the future. So I need you to be able to do that. I need to get you to that heightened state to where you can do X, so you can levitate, so you can do the Jedi mind trick. And then you spend the rest of your time as a Jedi training to get back into that state.
Brent, that should be like recorded and put out to everybody who's a Star Wars fan. That was very well done. I like that a lot.
That was
Alfie.
Really well done, Brent. And I agree with you 100%, except for, did you miss that Chopper used his magnets so that Ezra couldn't levitate him?
I mean, I know that he was laughing at the end of it, and Chopper always does that stuff. But everything else holds true, my friend. Like if you think about it, like any other time that Ezra's learning a new skill, he doesn't actually get the skill until there's some sort of high stress situation.
I agree with you. I said I agree with you.
And so that's why the more I have a whole diatribe that I basically just shared with you from that one situation.
But
Chopper, you know what?
Had his magnets on.
Chopper did have the magnets on, but I bet you if it would have been a high stress situation, like in the middle of battle,
he would have ripped the ship apart.
Yeah, he would have. That's right. He would have ripped him right up with the floor. So, yes, it was kind of a joke to begin with, but it also served a purpose to make him have to really focus and have that against him. So, I like that a lot. I love that they went back to an old Clone Wars medical, facility or station. I mean, that was right out of the Clone Wars, right? I mean, it looked like an updated version of what it looked like back in the Clone Wars. So I thought that was really cool. Bringing back, Filoni always brings back the old.
I say it every episode.
I really like that. I liked the second. That was the second sister. It was the next Inquisitor, right?
Yeah, but how does she know that they're there? Because she's there before they turn the power on.
Their little droid was there.
Yeah, she had sensors on the medical station. Those little probe droids alerted her and she came flying in there. So they were there and she came shooting in to meet him.
Yeah, I'm with you. How was the pro droid there?
Agree.
Maybe we missed that.
I mean, so like that's the only thing is like you got the one Inquisitor, right? You have the one that's with Vader, and by the way, why the hell does Vader need another Inquisitor, right? Because Vader should be the ultimate badass. So we know the big one, and we know that he gets dispatched because the power comes on because she tells Chopper to power it up. Sabine tells Chopper to power it up. He powers it up, but he powers the entire station up, not just the entire station up. So now they're like, hey, we have this signal. And this is where Callus comes in. And it's like, so we have the signal from this station turn on. And the technician is like, that's weird. And Callus is like, how do you know? There could have been a faulty wiring. And so now Callus is the one saying, no, we don't need to go see it.
You're
and
right.
Vader walks up behind him and is like, they're there. We need, like, it's like the same thing plays out. Just like you say, they take stormtrooper outfits all the time to try to hide and disguise. Like, it's the same kind of like, no, we don't need to go there. And then somebody walks up and is like, no, yes, they're there. Let's go. And then the Inquisitor takes off, but then you find out that there's a second Inquisitor. And how the hell did she get there? I'm still baffled by that.
Well, so cool props on this. That was Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is Freddie Prinze Jr.'s wife. So you had an episode with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar in it. To begin with, we didn't hit this, but I saw in my notes, still back and forth. Captain Rex thinks there's a certain way to train Ezra. Kanan thinks there's a different way to train Ezra, but neither one of them go on this mission to the medical station with him. They're like, do it my way, and they send him off. And so that was really a good part of the show to see that that's still going on. It's going to be a long time of that going on. The Inquisitors I thought were pretty cool. I mean, let's face it, you can't overuse Vader, so it's good to have some other bad guys in there to still kind of put a little fear in things, but not be the big bad like Vader is. You don't want to go to the well too many times. I liked when they were talking to Ezra and they were trying to get him to give in or cooperate, and they bring up Ahsoka and they mention her name and they said, we know, Ahsoka Tano, whatever, you're working with her. And he's like, who's Ahsoka? I mean, he knows, but he's again trying to play it off because let's face it, probably not a good thing to throw out there that you're around a former Jedi from the Clone Wars, to the Inquisitors. But anything before they get back to the ship and before they escape and all that stuff, anything that stood out to you guys as far as the battle between them, Zeb helping them get out of there? Let's face it, Zeb's still kind of the comic relief and the burly big guy who breaks things and knocks things apart, but he did at least put together a good plan to get him out of there. Any other things before they get back and see Rex and Kanan and Hera again? Brent.
So in that interaction between the third sister, 25th sister, whatever, the Inquisitor and Ezra, she starts saying something about the Jedi. We know the Jedi. We know that you know where the Jedi is. He has to be thinking she's talking about Kanan. She doesn't. I don't think he makes the connection because I don't think the Inquisitor knows about Kanan, but the Inquisitor knows about Ahsoka. And I think Ezra thinks that the Inquisitor is talking about Kanan. Like there's a misconnection in there, and like there's like they're talking across each other, and he's thinking that she's talking about Kanan until the name of Ahsoka comes out.
I would agree with you. I would agree that because let's face it, the only one that's been coming up, Callus has run into him. Everything else has been Kanan, right? I mean, in that sector and in that area. Alfie, would you agree it's something like that until they brought up Ahsoka?
Yeah. I felt like he was trying to protect Kanan at first until she brought up the name Ahsoka.
Right. I mean, I think he's still trying to, because he's still like, I don't think he wants them to know that. Anyway, that Kanan's a Jedi. They may not even know that Kanan is a Jedi, really, because he was a Padawan at the time. They may not even know that he has the Force powers, but they do know about Ahsoka because of the whole situation with Vader talking to the Empire. So they're trying to find Ahsoka. I don't know. Like there's
the only thing that I can think of is that Callus has let him know about Kanan from his interactions with him. That's pretty much. I mean, Tarkin and Callus knew of Kanan because they just trapped him and tried to torture him and all that. But you're
they
right.
know someone killed the Inquisitor.
Correct.
Right.
So
okay.
But
Okay.
I mean, either way, I bet you at first he's thinking, I can't give up Kanan until they go, we know about Ahsoka. And then he's like, oh, wait a minute, So,
right, there's kind of a switch. Like you almost see like a switch in the dialogue, a switch in the way that he's interacting when they use Ahsoka's name and not Kanan's name.
I like when they get back. And again, Rex and Kanan are still going back and forth on how he should be trained and what kind of discipline. And Rex kind of rips on Kanan, saying he doesn't have discipline, which means he's not giving discipline to the kid. But then again, Rex is always talking about how his great general and leader didn't really have discipline either, right? He kind of flew by the seat of his pants until Ezra and Sabine and Zeb come back and tell him about the 2 Inquisitors and that they knew of Ahsoka. Kanan was like, I have no idea, or we have no idea what we're up against. Again, that expansion of the series, that expansion of the show, the expansion of the Empire, the Inquisitors, and the Rebels. I mean, that line right there. I mean, Kanan even says, we have no idea what we're up against, and he's scared because that's part of Kanan and part of his growth. But I really these 5 episodes, like I said, were some of the best animated. When we talk about Clone Wars versus Rebels, there's fluff in both of them, but these first 5 right here, not much fluff. I mean, you get a little comic relief for a few minutes, but you get some serious conversations, serious topics, and you're seeing some really big growth in the characters of at least Kanan and Ezra. We're still waiting on the growth on some of the other characters. So, you guys, any more thoughts on what we watched or what Alfie didn't watch, but knows what we talked about?
I've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, this series just gets better and better. There's still a few that throw curveballs at us here or there in a few episodes, but let's face it, by the time we get to the end of season 2, this thing's on full speed ahead. I mean, it's going at a very quick rate, at a very almost adult level, because of the storyline it's following. Alfie, were you going to say something? I saw your hand go up.
2 points I'd like to make. One, if you were married to Sarah Michelle Gellar, would you not ask her to talk in that voice all the time? I'm sorry, that may be inappropriate, but rewatching this episode today, I just I couldn't get past that.
It's good. I like it. It's a good point.
Second, I really liked this episode, and I liked the introduction of the Inquisitors. But this season really is hard for me to rewatch, and I've rewatched it a couple of times. And it's right up to this point because it really teased the whole Vader thing. And I know, like you said, you can't really overdo it. So he's in the first 2 episodes, and then you replace him with like Team Rocket here because afterwards, Kanan and Ezra are just running away from. They make these 2 almost foolish until the last 2 episodes, and you bring Vader back. And I don't know. I know he can't be in every episode, kind of as similar as Thrawn is in the next season and the season after that, but I still think as heavily as they promoted Vader in this series, he just wasn't in it enough. And there's really no reason why he's not in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the Empire at that time. So, I mean, I guess you could just say he's being pulled in different directions. But if you've got 2 Jedi that you know of in a certain area, you're right. Instead of sending the Inquisitors to get them,
it would make 3.
Now you're right. Now there's 3 of them. Darth Vader should be chasing those, but I think they have to figure out how do we make 22 episodes per season. I mean, so you have to fill that. You don't want to be filler bad guys, but just like Batman, when he was Adam West and Burt, what was his name? Burt Ward? I can't remember. in the 1960s, they had to throw every kind of, it couldn't be the Joker in every episode, couldn't be the Riddler, Joker, and Penguin. You had to mix in some other weird ones that you're like, why are we even doing this? But
I get all of that, but with the heavy promotion of series now, it's like the Daredevil series. If you're going to promote the Punisher as being in the series, him being in the last 5 minutes doesn't, make up for 3 months of promotion. And I kind of felt that way with Vader in this.
Okay. I can see that. Brent?
I didn't see any of these months of promotion. And so what were you, was this on because wasn't this a Disney XD? Wasn't this on it was on a teen Disney channel, right? I mean, it was aimed at teenagers. The Disney XD is more of your
I understand that.
Mid-teen. But so when you say promote, my question was, when you say promotion, was this on just watching the commercials,
trailers, commercials, promotional, material?
Because like toys. I said, I didn't find it until July, right? So a lot of this stuff, I'm serious. It was a COVID thing. Maybe March when
even the previous season ended with Vader.
Right. I mean, and so it ended with Vader, and then you have those 2 episodes, and I would think that he was going to be in more, but then they bring in these 2 Inquisitors because they didn't want to have Vader. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have enough money to pay James Earl Jones's knockoff.
Maybe. But I will agree with you, Alfie. Until
the payoff is great, so that kind of makes up for it. But
and I can't remember what it was. Season 2 where we got more and more. Yeah, because season 2 was really the season of the Inquisitors, because when we get to the end and you've got Maul, Ahsoka, Vader all come together. Sorry. Go watch this shows, people.
This happened 8 years ago?
Yeah. So yeah. But when you have all those come together, they start wiping out all the Inquisitors, right? I mean, it's like picking them off one at a time. They even got a weird alien one with weird fingers and all that. And they start. The thing that got me was the helicopter lightsabers. That one, I get it. Those were a little.
Like I said, it's like Team Rocket. Every episode, they fly away. We'll get you next episode.
I liked the fact that they had the lightsabers like that, but then towards the end, when it was in the Maul episodes, when they started actually flying with them, is when I'm like, okay, you've got me. I like the fact that they would spin. I like the fact that they could use them as boomerang in a boomerang style too, as they were flying through, because that comes up in one of the next sets of episodes, is when they go looking for younglings. They throw it and basically slice everybody apart. But I loved it. I love the first 5. I love the fact that we did have Vader. I love the fact that Kanan is basically starting to work with Rex. You bring Rex back in. You have Ahsoka. Ahsoka's shown up in a couple episodes. She's a player, but she's not like a fixture. I love how they are scared shitless of Vader and the Inquisitors, but they're not necessarily afraid of Callus. So everything was going, and it was enjoyable for the first 5 episodes. It's kind of my summation of where we're at.
I agree.
I like to see where they're going. So I really want to know. Again, at this point, I say it. She's my girl because I play her in Legions. I want to know more about Sabine. I love the Sabine. I'd like to know more about Zeb, but I know that there's a little bit. I mean, I know going forward, you haven't really got a lot of their story. And one thing I really want, and you don't ever really get, is how the hell they assembled all of them. They kind of hint at it in each piece, but they never tell you how they actually collected each individual. The only one that you find out how they collected is Ezra, and that's when the story starts.
Right.
I want to know. I want to know. The more I watch, the more I want to know, how did they collect Sabine? How did they collect Zeb? How did they collect those different people?
Yeah, and I hate it because I told you to read the book New Dawn, and it had some really good parts on it, but you kept, like you said, you kept waiting for Sabine to show up. You kept waiting for Zeb to show up, and I get it because I did too. So I mean, I get it. So it's maybe sometime they'll give us that in some kind of Rebels book when they recap everything. So,
or in Rangers of the New Republic, when they bring Hera in, they give us some background and they do a flashback and talk about how they collected Zeb. But I don't know how do you do Zeb in live action? That would be a really interesting costume.
They can do it. They can pull that off now, don't you think, Alfie?
Oh yeah, it's CG. You can do it.
Yeah, but that one I would like to see a practical, and that would just be a really interesting practical.
I think it'd be hard the way he walks on his toes.
Yeah.
Some weird green screen shoes that maybe could work. I don't know. But so this was fun. I love going through Rebels. We are going to get caught up on Clone Wars. We're not going to do all Clone Wars. We're going to do like 15 arcs of those. So to give everybody a rundown before we close up shop, we will be doing Rebels season 2, episodes 6 through 11. That's our next watch, and before we do our next Fulcrum files, we'll be doing Clone Wars season 2, episodes 5 through 8, which you kind of did, Alfie, somewhat today. We will have Rogue One next week that we will review and talk about and do some commentary on. So that'll be good. And the next book that we will do in the Lothal Library will be the Plagueis book. So all those are things on the agenda. A quick reminder to everybody that next week we'll have Scott Rifen from My Star Wars. What was it? My
Star Wars Story.
My Star Wars Story. That will be next week. The week after that, we have Riley Blanton from the Star Wars Report podcast. The week after that, Adam Bray will be back, and he said he is ready to talk like 100% Star Wars the whole time. So we're good on that. And then the last week of March, we will have Steve Glosson on from Geek Out Loud with the whole crew. So before we kind of did, we are gonna mix them in with the crew. It's not going to be like one-on-one interviews. We are actually going to do the crew. They're part of the crew, but they're going to have a lot of fun. I've been working with all of them to get all this planned out, and they're really excited. So we're going to do that again with Scott Rifen next week. We will do the Rogue One commentary and follow up, and then as soon as Nick's healthy, we'll figure out a way to do the Clone Wars that he missed and planned up for this week. Any closing remarks from you guys?
No, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. You got it. Thanks so much for the long show. I hope this all works tonight. Should work. Looks like it's working. You know what? As always, thank you to the listeners, and thank you for everybody who's on Twitter world with us and following us and checking out the YouTube channels. Again, if you're in Central Indiana, go check out what is it called? Indianapolis Legions.
So Indianapolis Legions is the Facebook page.
Okay.
But Greenwood Game Preserve on March 6th and March 20th March 6th and March 20th.
Gotcha. So that, and then Alfie and I know for sure on March 27th are going to head to Xenia, Ohio, near Dayton for the Ohio Toy Fair. We're going to see if other people from the group or from the Rule of the Galaxy crew are going to go and have a fun day of recording stuff and just being silly and talking Star Wars. So if any of you are around that area or want to meet up, we'd be more than happy to do that. But other than that, Rule of the Galaxy SW at Twitter, rulethegalaxysw@gmail.com for the email. Follow us on YouTube. And until next week, may the Force be with you.